So the last time we spoke at the Bloomberg New Economy, it was early on in the pandemic, and your business was booming. As I recall, you were one of the most successful, if not the most successful startups in the world. Here we are a year later, and in the US at least, the pandemic is winding down, shops are reopening, but online sales are still accelerating. You are the last click of the online payment system, the buy now, pay later option. How fast is your business growing right now?
Yeah, Andy, look, thanks for having me. And, as you recall, it was a very turbulent time when we met last time. And, if you looked into the future, I don't think any of us could have really anticipated where we are today. But there's been really two distinct trends that have driven, our business over the last 12 months. The first, as you described, major shift from offline retail to online retail. And even as, kind of stores reopening, online hold its ground and not seeing a huge diminishing of the channel. And secondly, there's been a really major shift away from credit cards to debit cards. So, as we saw during the 2008 financial crisis, that was the first trigger for millennials to say, I'd prefer to spend my own money. And we see acceleration towards debit over, the last 12-month period, given 90% of our consumers use a debit card, not a credit card, additive to our business growth. As you described, we've grown very quickly, pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, processed a couple billion of volume per month, still growing at, triple digit year on year, and live in a variety of different countries around the world. So really privileged to partner with some of the best global retail brands, and we'll go from there.
I want to get to that credit debit story in a minute and why your core audience, the millennials and Gen Z, have an aversion to credit. But let me ask you this. It seems that the new normal now really is digital. I just saw a headline saying Gwyneth Paltrow has closed down her store in San Francisco. Where does all this leave traditional retailing? Does it ever come back?
Yeah, I mean, look, interestingly, through our physical retail channel, we've seen a pretty material, comeback of physical retail. I think no matter which way you cut it, physical represent the lion's share of retail over the next few years at least. And so you are seeing retailers very much, particularly in the US, invest in the physical channel as the world begins to reopen. Being from Australia, we saw physical retail open many months ago. Certainly what we did, diminishing of the online channel. So offline when it's come back, it's certainly growing the overall retail pie. What existed previously in retail is now significantly larger as a result of hospitality and travel very much being reduced. So we still see retail playing a crucial role in the retail world, and we're certainly investing into that channel ourselves.
So your core customer base, millennials, Gen Z, are buying fast fashion, beauty. What changes have you seen in the kinds of products that they're buying, and what does this tell us about shifting lifestyle preferences, shifting patterns of work post-COVID?
Yeah, look, at different moments during the pandemic cycle, we certainly saw different products being bought, whether it was home and outdoor, fitness in the early days, or, moving into pets, and fashion has actually made quite a strong comeback in recent times. We have seen it largely normalize in recent times to, mix similarly pre-pandemic. Definitely travel is still suppressed, and, naturally, as I mentioned before, the share of wallet from hospitality is also down, but you're seeing lead indicators of a strong recovery in that regard, particularly in North America. So yeah, we're seeing at the moment it very much normalized to more recent to previous pre-pandemic levels.
So you're offering buy now, pay later through Apple Pay, through Google Pay, which sounds like it could be encouraging a reckless kind of impulse buying, but you claim it actually encourages responsible shopping, responsible spending. How do you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, it's a really important topic, and goes back to this preference millennials away from credit to debit cards. So, when the 2008 financial crisis hit, I just turned 18, and the world said, don't spend money you don't have. And if you think about it, if 100% of people pay back a credit card on time, the industry simply doesn't work. It doesn't exist. So incentives are completely misaligned, where a finance product's incentive is for someone to remain outstanding for as long as possible, be revolving in interest for as long as possible, and that's how income is earned. We shifted the economics around, where we charge the retailer a small fee, which means it can be fundamentally free for the consumer. And it also means at the moment that someone goes late on our platform, they can't actually keep shopping until they pay that late payment back. So they can never revolve in debt. Our loss rates over the last 6-month period was 0.7%, which is many multiples less, other credit card providers that sit at more kind of 3 to 6%. So we're really proud of the way we've designed the product and the outputs that have subsequently unfolded.
Research from the Pew organization shows that Gen Z has an aversion to credit after watching their parents get into trouble and really struggle financially during the 2008 financial crisis. Is that what you see? Is that how you might partly explain your success?
Without a doubt, absolutely. When I grew up during the 2008 financial crisis, there was this distinct shift away from credit to debit. And, we watched the trend for quite a number of years, me and my co-founder in Afterpay. And, it's kind of obvious in hindsight, but this debit trend continued to amplify as millennials and Gen Z simply earned more income in the economy. So now debit card usage is incredibly strong. I mean, if you look back in May last year, you had credit cards with negative 21% year-on-year growth, but debit cards in the peak of the pandemic had positive year-on-year growth. There was systemic shift away from credit to debit, and it's only continued to get stronger. You are definitely seeing Gen Z have a material greater aversion towards credit than millennials, but millennials is even greater as compared to Gen X and older. During the pandemic, the greatest shift away from credit to debit was actually in Gen X and boomers. So you're seeing this trend go way more mainstream as people prefer to spend their own money.
This idea that Gen Z are responsible is spenders is somewhat at odds with some of the crazier financial trends we've seen during the pandemic. I'm thinking of all these Gen Z folks flocking onto Robinhood and taking a punt on AMC and Dogecoin.
Yeah, I think that what's happening is this consumer base is at the forefront of all of the new revolutions that are occurring right now. They're being forced to think about their finances in a different way and being forced to manage their money in a way that was different to all previous generation. I mean, the income to property price gap has never been greater, and they're forced to work out how they're going to forge their own path. The two examples that you just described for me is a really important moment where this next generation consumer is such an important force in the economy that their preferences are becoming the trend. I would say that there are examples of protest showing progress, And how sustainable or where that ends up is certainly, up for debate. And you've seen a lot of volatility as a result of that. But what you have seen is, the traditional world be completely shifted upside down when this particular cohort decides that this is something that they believe in and they want to show their passion and their loyalty behind. You're seeing that unfold in an incredibly meaningful way, in a way that has never occurred previously.
Last question, Nick. You've seen the whole arc of digital commerce. As has Linda mentioned, you were the most successful trader of jewelry on eBay. Now you're at the cutting edge, the leading edge of this latest iteration in e-commerce. What are the big trends coming that we should pay attention to?
Retailers are the most focused on at the moment is, today millennial and Gen Z represent about 30% of all spend in the retail economy. But in 7 years' time, they'll represent 50% of all spend in the retail economy. So just like, as you mentioned, AMC and Dogecoin are seeing, these rallies as a result of certain brands really get leverage and influence when they adequately engage with this next generation consumer. So retailers are really deeply focused on how they can play their role in attracting this consumer. We, as an example, send 1 million leads per day from our app to our retail partners. So acting as one of the top marketing channels to those retailers to drive them that consumer. Beyond the payment method, we can actually be a marketing channel. And I do think that retailers are very focused on that next generation consumer in their strategy, because now's the time.